Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with another look back at a classic album, and it's Deep Purple. As many of you know, it's one of my favourite bands, so you might wonder why I haven't just filled the walls of Now Spinning Magazine with Purple stuff. I think I've said before that some bands I'm so close to that they're almost like river and ground, and I don't know whether I can do them justice, because there's so much to say, but there again, so much has already been said. If you Google Fireball by Deep Purple, because that's the one we're going to look at today, the world is awash with stuff on Fireball, so what more could I possibly add that hasn't already been said? All I can do is tell you my story. On the website and on the YouTube channel and elsewhere, you'll find my story about In Rock, when actually I'd gone looking for Fireball, couldn't find it anywhere. It's the first album I ever bought, and I came home with In Rock because I needed to come home with something. So I knew Machine Head, I didn't know In Rock, and that changed. From there I went to Made in Japan, and strangely enough, to who do we think we are? So it was about 1973 through 73, I think, when this happened. Now, the school I went to had a library where you could borrow albums for something like 10p a night, and you brought it back the next day. You could only borrow it for one night and to play it, and nobody in my year at school had a tape deck. No one at all. So you could listen to it, but then you had to take it back. Can you imagine that? You could play it, but you had to give it back unless you bought your own copy. And albums were about £2.25 then, and I was getting about 30p a week pocket money. And I was at school, so I couldn't afford them, and I was buying them on cassettes as well. Anyway, so my friend Paul Mansell, his dad had a reel-to-reel tape recorder. And so we used to borrow the records, and I'd go round to his house and he would put it on, and I would take it back to mine afterwards, and he would record them on his dad's reel-to-reel tape recorder, so that when I used to go round to his house after school, we would sit and listen to music, and we could also listen to music that we didn't own, and we'd listen to on his reel-to-reel tape recorder, which actually didn't record things quite properly. It was almost mono, but that was beside the point. We had some bearing of recording. Now, I can remember getting this record for the first time and getting it home, and this is one of my originals here, and this is another one that my friend donated to the Now Spinning archive, and it's got sellotape around the corners, because it was one of those, some people used to put sellotape around the edges of the albums to stop them getting damaged. Many years later, of course, the sellotape caused all the damage. And it was quite a luxurious affair, really, with this kind of mottled effect on the card. And that's another reason why it's so hard to find good ones. And we put it on, and Fireball starts first. Now, was this completely new to me? It was not. It was not completely new to me. Bear with me, because this is completely unrehearsed, and I'm just going completely by feel here. Feel, not feel. This is my original Fireball single. You might see that little rose little thing in the corner. This is an ex-jukebox single, which I used to buy from the newsagents for about 30p. And I remember hearing this song for the first time. I think it was Emperor Roscoe, Radio 1. And in those days, he used to... a DJ on Radio 1 would come on, and you knew whose show it was, obviously, and there were certain people, could be Stuart Henry as well was another one, but Roscoe, and they'd say at the start of the show what they might be featuring. They began going to feature these singles by Sweet, Slade, Donny Osmond, and then they say we're going to look back and have hits by Deep Purple, and he said the word Deep Purple, and so in those days there wasn't a playlist, you couldn't fast track it. It meant that over the next 2 hours of his 2-hour show, at some point he was going to play a Deep Purple song. And I couldn't record it. I mean, in a few years' time, I'd be there with my tape deck with my finger on playing record, waiting for a track to start to press record. But this was before then. And I think it was literally the last 10 minutes of his show. So I'd been sat there going through all this other stuff, waiting to hear a Deep Purple song, not knowing what he was going to do. And he said, and this is about 1973-ish, end of 73, could be early 74. It's before I bought Burn anyway. And he said, and here we are, we're going to go back in time, and here becomes Purple, the Purps I think he called them, and Fireball. Back in time, 1971. It was 1973. It was 2 years old, but it was back in time. And to me, 1971, when you're 14 in 1973, was a long time ago, because then I was 12. I was playing with my Lego then. So I was changing. So I heard Fireball, and it was unlike anything off in rock or Machine Head. It was the double bass drum, it was heavy, it was fast, it was furious. And it was, to this day, the lyrics were like, well, they're sci-fi, aren't they? They're completely sci-fi lyrics. Racing like a fireball, dancing like a ghost, Gemini and I don't know, well, it's what I like the most. So I've just reeled that off. And those lyrics, what the hell do they mean? I don't know, but it's about rockets and space, so I was in. And the B-side was Demon's Eye, which is a great shuffle. The guitar solo always sounded a bit kind of slightly off-key to me, but I really liked it. And it says on here, both tracks taken from the LP Fireball. So it was great to borrow a copy of Fireball. It really was. And so me and Paul sat down. Obviously we knew Fireball, so we knew that was great. And the next track was No, No, No. And it was like, we weren't quite sure what to make of this one at first. And this continued. We knew Demon's Eye, and then Anyone's Daughter came along, which completely threw us. It was like country music, and the lyrics were like not serious, quite funny. And then The Mule, I knew from Only Japan, but this was nothing like that. Obviously, it was a proper song without the drum solo, but it was all this phasing and everything, and there was the Fools, which I really liked, and I started to realise that's where part of Space Trucking from Only Japan had come from, and No One Came, which again was a fairly nondescript riff as well, and off it went. And we both looked at each other and we thought, and I have to be honest, we were a bit underwhelmed. We thought we'd been listening to Machine Head in rock and Made in Japan, and we were about to discover Burn, and we saw this as like, a kind of a dip down. So I took it back to the school library and said thanks very much, and there it stayed. I didn't actually buy a copy until 1976, I think it was. No, late 1975. So the year I left school, which I'm documenting in a series of other videos. So during that period of time, I also bought another copy of Fireball because I liked it, and I also bought Strange Kind of Woman, which at the time, of course, was just a standalone single with I'm Alone on the back, which again was a standalone B-side. I hadn't put two and two together to realise these were outtakes from the Fireball sessions. And I didn't know the mystery of what was going on in America with the release there, so I also bought another version of Strange Kind of Woman as a spare, something I did then. So what happened was, Come Taste the Band had come out, and I'd got enough money to buy two albums, and I bought Come Taste the Band, and as you know from my other video on Come Taste the Band and my recent one about 5 from 75, the UK bits, is that Come Taste the Band had really helped me through a difficult period of transitioning from school to going to work. And I thought, well, I'm taking a risk with Come Taste the Band, and I should really also boost my traditional Deep Purple collection as it was. And so I saw in the same shop they had a good deal on Fireball, and I bought it. Also around this time, when I'd been at work, I got into work early one Monday morning, and I heard two older blokes me being a young lad, talking about they'd had a great time on a Saturday night and they'd listened to their favourite records, and the one guy said Fireball by Deep Purple, and it made me think, his favourite record's Fireball by Deep Purple. I should really do something about that and really reappraise it. So I bought it. This is the one I bought all those years ago. So this one is in a protective sleeve, but it's absolutely in mint condition, and it was also one of the rare versions that came with a lyric sheet. So I could actually see the golden light above me shows me where you're from. The magic in your eyes bewitches all you gaze upon. You stand on the hill as they keep all around you. You wonder where you're going from. Oh yeah, it was just, the lyrics were just fantastic. Where's that line? Yes, you're racing like a fireball, dancing like a ghost. Your Gemini I don't know is what I like the most. My head's getting broken and my mind is getting bust, but I know I'm coming down the road of golden dust. Oh yes, fantastic stuff, absolutely fantastic. So, what did I think a mere 24 months later, was it? Well, my mind had changed. Don't fall over. That's going to... Live TV. I changed my mind about it. Also, this is about the same time that Simon Robinson was saying that every school should play Fireball to every school kid in the music lessons. And I started to understand why he said that. And it's because, and I've called this album Deep Purple's prog album. And I usually get shot down for saying that because it's not prog, is it? It's not time changes and complicated structures, but in a way it's prog because it's progressive, and all of this music was defined as progressive rock back then, because heavy metal wasn't, the terminology wasn't around. It was progressive, and you could see what Deep Purple were trying to do. They were trying to progress, so they'd done in rock and they wanted to do something different. The Machine Head was different to Fireball, and etc. And there was lots of different light and shade here, which went straight over my head initially. But then it started to really come together. I remember, those of you Deep Purple fans, you remember this book from Simon Robinson's Deep Purple Appreciation Society? And I used to see, these adverts, these press ads for the album, because when it came out in Warner Brothers, and I have one of those here, the track listing was different. This is an American version, and it's a later American version, although the USA always had the card they used wasn't built to last, really. But the difference here is that the Americans didn't know what Demon's Eye was, because it didn't exist on the album, but they had Strange Kind of Woman instead. Now, in my mind's eye, but I'm going to change my mind as I say this. In my mind's eye, this should have been Fireball, No, 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 Strange Kind of Woman, Demon's Eye, The Mule Falls, and No One Came. And Anyone's Daughter should have been a B-side. Yeah, it's not a bad idea even now, actually. But having played Fireball before doing this video, Anyone's Daughter kind of, the warmth and the love kind of moved out towards it. I started to realise the piano playing and the guitar solo is quite unique, and the lyrics are very, very observational and very funny. But really, they took a great risk in doing that. And Strange Kind of Woman, apart from, until I heard the single, I just thought it was this strange track that they'd stuck on the live album. One of the highlights, obviously. Also, I went and bought the sheet music because I was learning to play guitar. Which has got a little essay in the front about it, and then all the music to the various tracks. So I bought that, which was doubled up with in rock. So I had that, and I also this isn't in sequence, but I also had it on cassette as well back then, and this is the original cassette. What does it sound like? I dread to think. I absolutely dread to think what it sounds like. But my reassessment now is that No, No, No is a highlight of Deep Purple's catalogue, and the reason is the funkability and the expressiveness of the music, because it feels a lot longer song than it probably is, but the solo sections, the guitar solo with that slide from Richie Blackmore, and then the bass, drum, organ, literally funk behind, such a groove behind it. It is absolutely incredible, because this is what makes Deep Purple and many of the bands from this period so exciting still, is that they didn't do the obvious. They didn't. Now you just feel that a guitarist would just fill the space with a million notes. There'd be any opportunity, let's speed up and head to the finish. They weren't thinking like that. Richie Blackmore's playing is just right for the music. And the keyboard solo which comes in, again, just grooves with it. There's no egos here. No one's trying to outdo the other person. They can do that on stage. But here it's just perfection. It really is. Didn't see that at first. But where the action is, now all Deep Purple albums in these days had 4 tracks on one side and 3 on the other. They had 7 songs. It was almost as if like this is something they were always going to do, which of course they broke when they got to Burn. So everything had like 3 songs on side 2 usually. And in this case, those 3 songs were fantastic. Now the Mule, as I said earlier, was not the one from Made in Japan, which is the version I know, but the version of the Mule on Fireball features one of Richie Blackmore's best guitar solos, that kind of staccato, it is just inspired. And yes, he does play some fast notes here, but again he pulls it back to kind of restraint, like reeling in a fish as he catches it, and he comes up right to the top end of his register and just slides back down. It's absolutely stunning. What's my favourite song on Fireball? That would be the next one, and it's Fools. We used to play this, me and my friend Paul, we used to play this really loud, because you have, and again it's different to anything by Deep Purple, you have this kind of ethereal, almost choir-like, lyric comes in from Ian Gillan with I'm crying, I'm dying, and it's just, and we used to try and guess, it feels easy now, I guess because I feel more musical, I don't know. We used to try and guess when the band were going to come in, and it used to always make me jump. It used to make my parents jump as well. I used to have it on quite loud and be sitting there watching them, knowing that any minute now Deep Purple were going to come piling in, and they go woo as they drank their tea. Worked every time. But the lyrical attack from Gillan, his voice is very quite bluesy in places on this, but the lyrics are great. I just believed it, and it's got a great kind of chorus as well. Fools is a highlight in the Deep Purple canon, but equally the other reason, of course, is that solo section, which is the bit lifted and carried into Space Truckin' from Made in Japan. But here it has a much more in-your-face feel. When you turn it up, it feels as if you've kind of crept into the studio and you're just sitting at the back and you're surrounded by this, that as Richie Blackmore uses the volume control on his guitar to make the guitar sound like a cello or a violin, and John Lord brings a chord underneath just to support the guitar as he does that, as Pace takes the drumming right back. It is a masterstroke. You think about how this is sequenced, how the younger version of me was going, don't know, it's not flowing like Machine Head, but it was unique in rock, complete, unique to Deep Purple. Fireball, unique, complete to Deep Purple. Machine Head, unique to Deep Purple. Who do we think we are? Each of them a slice of a different cake, but made by the same person. Absolutely fantastic. And then we come to No One Came, which are probably one of the most acutely observational, tongue-in-cheek songs about trying to be a cool dude in a band that's ever been written. Man, your music is really hot. No one came from miles around and said your music is really hot, and your music is really funky and all that. But just before it goes into the the guitar solo, again, real groove from Blackmore that he's not thinking. He's thinking within the song. He's comfortable in his skin. He could easily do something that he's done off Child in Time, or he's going to do. He could just fill it with notes, but he's not. He's just playing and going with the flow of the music. The same as John Lord. It's It's just fantastic. Got to number one, the number one album. So from I was aware of that, of course, the way from the age when you dive into things. But it was a monster album, and now of course it's seen as like in rock, Fireball, Machine Head, Who Do We Think We Are, Burn, Stormbringer, but they all flow. They all really, really flow well together. And in fact, I mean, the Steve Morse period, Deep Purple, probably mined more tracks from Fireball outside of Machine Head than anything else. There were so many songs here they could play with, and I think, fair play to Steve Morse. He did a great version of Falls. He really, really did. There was other things they could have done as well, but, fantastic, and no one came. So as I entered the digital age, I bought a Japanese CD, as you do, and what else did I get? And I bought the 25th anniversary. Was it? Yes, I think it was 25th anniversary. So this is the one probably to find, and you'll find it quite cheap as well, I would have thought. And it's good because the band, from in rock, you had Cry Free and a couple of other things, Jam Stew, that got left off. And Machine Head, there was When a Blind Man Cries. But here there was a lot of creativity going on, and they couldn't fit it all on. And so you had Strange Kind of Woman is on here, remixed by Roger Glover. I'm Alone, which is the B-side, put back in its rightful place. That's another track that Steve Morse period Deep Purple did. Freedom, which appeared first of all on a double compilation, didn't it? I don't know if I can find that now. Probably can't, can I? Don't know if I can. Oh, I can. Here it is. Bear with me. It appeared on there first, which came out when the band reformed in 1984, I think. And it was all right, but it was kind of, you could feel it was an outtake, and even playing it the other day, it didn't feel as if it was part of the Fireball sessions, really. But Slow Train does. Slow Train has got a really funky drum beat, and the guitar solo is quite fiery, great riff, great keyboard solo. It's the most complete song, and it would be great to hear them do a version of this live, and it does sound like it should be on there. This dips when they put something together to call the Noise Abatement Society tapes, which is John Lord fooling around the studio, and that could have been maybe pushed to the back. And there's backwards piano as well. There's an instrumental version of Fireball, which is interesting, and there's a new mix of No One Came, which is stunning. This comes with a great little booklet. I know some of you have probably all got this, but if you're new to Deep Purple and you don't know where to start and you're trying to track down an original vinyl copy, it won't be easy, but it will be easier to find the 25th anniversary edition of the CD, which is excellent and got loads of extra stuff on it. It's nearly 80 minutes long, so that's well worth looking for. So that's my journey looking back at the Fireball album. So yes, now it is one of my favourites, although if you really asked me to do a ranking video for Deep Purple, I would find that really difficult. I think everything would be number one, because there aren't really any bad Deep Purple albums. There are some that are slightly better than others, but it depends on what day of the week it is and what month of the year it is and whether the sun's shining or not. So I don't think I can. Although I am going to do a live ranking one, I feel that might be easier. So that is Fireball from 1971 by Deep Purple. He just had a few live pictures in the centre, no other blurb, but he had enough mystery to keep me going. And it's a great cover, isn't it? I think it's it's an iconic cover. I suppose I'm going to say all the Deep Purple covers are pretty ironic. Iconic. But anyway, so thank you for watching and thank you for being here. And please subscribe. Please share the YouTube channel or the website or any of the posts you see fly across the screen of our social channels. And please, if you can, become a member of YouTube or a patron and help support me and help me do more videos, which you'll see before anyone else. And you also see lots of exclusive stuff that never goes public either. So take care, and remember, music is the healer and the doctor, and Keep spinning those discs, and I shall see you very, very soon.